All right, guys, LPOP just called in that enemy patrol's coming down. We're gonna set up on the west side of this road. You're gonna stage north, you're gonna stage in the center, I'm gonna stage south. You're gonna initiate the ambush. When I yell shift, you're gonna move into an L-shaped ambush. Any questions? Nope. All right, let's get in position. The light support weapon, or what's commonly referred to just as the LSW, has been a hot topic of conversation recently in regards to increasing the capability of the civilian defense force, or the Minuteman, whatever we're going to refer to that side of the community as. And there are a lot of reasons why this is beneficial to that civilian force or that civilian group. So that's why in part 6 of the Modern Minuteman series, we're going to be talking about the light support weapon. But first, guys, please like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Anything you guys do helps us out in the algorithms and allows us to continue to make more videos like this. In addition, I have to thank our sponsors for this video. The first one being Red Right Hand. Red Right Hand makes uppers and other firearms parts and are huge advocates of the Second Amendment. They provided us with this upper that this build is kind of centered around, and we thank them for their support. And then the second being Partisan Solutions. Partisan Solutions makes adapters for ACOGs for different styles of red dots. They provided us with this ACOG and eFlex setup, as well as the lower for us to continue to test and review builds around. We'll have more on them, but please go give both of those companies some love for supporting the channel. So what is the light support weapon? Essentially, it is a platform that is similar to the individual rifle that is issued to that small unit, and it makes it logistically dependent upon that small unit and not on a higher support organization. It is normally going to be fed via magazine the same way that the rest of the unit's rifles are, in the same caliber. That way, everything kind of works together. And we first see the idea of the LSW come to light with the RPK, as it was paired with the AK-47, which was chambered in 7.62 by 39, and later variants came out in 5.45. We see this once again in the British Army in the 1970s and 1980s with the SA-80 series of rifles. And they had their SA-80 individual rifle and then the actual titled LSW, and they were both chambered in 5.56. Now, today, we see a lot of variants kind of coming to play in the market, essentially based around the AR platform, as the AR-15 and similar platforms are the most predominant rifle here in America. And what makes the LSW so special is that it can be logistically supported by these small units. All of these are going to be chambered in 5.56 or something similar, and it doesn't require a huge support system in order to keep these guns running. And what this gives the civilian force, or the Minuteman, or whatever we're going to refer to them as, is the ability to provide higher volumes of fire. Now, I must emphasize that these are not machine guns, and they should not be thought of as such. These do not have the same capabilities that you may see in something like a 240 or a 50 or something larger. These are solely for the purpose of providing higher volumes of fire, which can be extremely important, especially to the defensive aspects of what you may find yourself doing as a civilian defense force, covering movement and maneuvers from the civilian defense force, anything like that. More rounds on target, the better. So I have two separate builds here today. The first one is the ECT build that's around the Red Right Hand provided upper. And then this is the Klein Machining rifle that is my buddy James. He let me borrow it for this video. So we're going to start with the Red Right Hand build. So we have the LMG upper from Red Right Hand. It is on a 20-inch barrel. And what's really cool about this rifle that Red Right Hand is doing is around the actual barrel itself, you can't see it, it's under the rails, is kind of this heat disbursement system. Essentially, it's a bunch of little rings around the barrel, and it helps displaces and moves heat away from the barrel so that this barrel will last longer. Obviously, when we're talking about higher volumes of fire and we're putting down serious rounds with these platforms, your barrel is going to get very hot. And traditionally in conventional forces, you'll see something like barrel swaps and whatnot with belt-fed weapons. Now, logistically, that does not work as well for this application of rifles. So this heat system that they have in place is an absolute game changer. I can tell you firsthand, we put well over 1,000 rounds through this rifle on a hot August day, and we were out in the sun for hours, and this rifle was cooking. But every once in a while, we dump some water on this, and it would significantly change the temperature of this barrel very fast. This barrel is a 1-7. It is on a Picatinny rail. We have a Surefire light, and then a GG&G bipod. I do actually really like this bipod. I was kind of biased to the M60 coming into this video before our big range day to test everything out and see what we liked. But this GG&G bipod actually surprised me a lot. Then we have a classic broomstick from the Marine Corps I had, just surplus laying around. We have the 4X ACOG with a E-Flex on top of the Partisan Solutions mount, the adapter. And then we have Red Right Hand's bolt carrier group on top of a mil-spec lower with a Franklin Armory binary trigger with some Magpul furniture. I'm a big fan of Magpul furniture. This rifle did phenomenal. It did fantastic. We were really pleased with it. Even with the 20-inch barrel, fantastic rifle. We're going to get to more of that in a second. And then over here on the other side, we have another company that's not as social media present per se, that's in the game, and that is Klein Machining. So Klein Machining normally makes 24-inch barrels, but you can pay some extra to get that barrel chopped down to the length that you want. So James's rifle here, we have an 18-inch barrel with a pursed and a Surefire light with an M60 bipod barrel mounted. Now, I have received some questions on social media about barrel mounted bipods and whether there's an effect on your rounds, your recoil, whatever it might be. Lots of questions on this. And I personally have not read anything that says there's that big of a difference, specifically with the 5.56 barrel, when it comes to barrel mounted bipods. And we have not noticed any significant changes or effects on it. And we've been running this rifle for, I'd say, almost a year now, through various environments and various types of 5.56 versus 62 grain, 55 grain, all of that. We don't see an effect. Now, if you have some other insight that may prove otherwise, please leave it in the comment section below. I don't know everything. Moving back, so the barrel itself is a 1-9 twist, and it does not have the same heat system that the Red Right Hand does, but this is a 1-inch thick barrel all the way to the gas block. Obviously, we need a heavy, durable barrel in order to stand up to the higher volumes of fire that we're trying to push out. This is on an M-lock. We have a Bravo Company foregrip on here. We get back here, we have the 3.5X on top with a aim point mounted on top. Very similar optic setup. And then we have a Fostech, might be pronouncing that incorrectly. I put the spelling right here. On a Aero Precision lower with some Geisley internals. This rifle, also fantastic. Now, we had 5 or 6 buddies out at the range the day we were doing our testings, and we had them shoot a 30-round mag through one and then would immediately do the other. And we wanted to know what they liked, because obviously, though they look similar, these are two completely different builds. And the general consensus was that a lot of people liked the Franklin Armory trigger a little bit better, and they felt like they could stay in the optic a little bit better on this side, but they felt like they were able to manage recoil a little bit better over here. And I think the M60 bipod has a big part to play with that. There's nothing wrong with the GG&G bipod. I don't think I really had any issues with it, but this M60 bipod, it is a hoss, and you can really kind of just lean into it and keep your sights on target. Regardless, both of these rifles did fantastic. Now, I know before lights, lasers, optics, and all that, I believe James said this rifle was around the $1,800 mark. That's lower, upper with bipod, binary trigger, and all. And then over here on this side, with the LMG upper, the mil spec lower, the binary trigger, all of that, I think we're looking closer to about $2,000. So fairly similar in price. Obviously, attachments are going to make a big difference on what you want to do. If we had one laying around, I'd have thrown in another IR laser on here, probably something like a D-ball, D2, something like that. Now, when it comes to magazines, and we're kind of going to transition into kit here, and I'm not going to talk about kit a ton. Primarily starting off, you're going to want a D60 in the magwell of whatever automatic rifleman happens to be carrying the LSW build. Now, we did run a little bit of the KCI 100 round drums, and though it fed and fired without flaw, we did have some issues as far as dropping the mag out, and it may be just because it's so new and whatnot, it needs a little bit of work, but it was a bit of a struggle at times to manage that and conduct proper reloads. So for that, I say start off with your D60, and then moving along to kit, you're going to want a minimum of 10 mags. That's a minimum. Really, I would say the standard is closer to 14. But you can only carry so much ammunition. And that's why it's important for you to do your proper pre-planning and mess with your SOPs, because those that are in the fire team of the individual carrying the LSW, they should be looking to support that guy in some regard. They may carry a single extra D60. They may carry 2 to 3 extra loaded magazines that are ready to go. Whatever it might be, the LSW gunner is going to need a little bit of support, especially carrying this amount of 5.56. Now, your LSW does not have to be this exact build. Some people may be looking to do this on a bit tighter of a budget. In that case, you don't even necessarily need to do a binary trigger or do an upper that's going to be rated for that more full auto rate of fire. You could do a standard 16 to 20 inch upper with a bipod and throw D60 in a mil spec lower. Now you just got to be fast on the trigger. Is that going to be as effective? No. But even with the binary trigger, it takes a little bit of time to really get good with it. Your rate of fire is not always going to be consistent, because obviously with the binary trigger, for every trigger pull and trigger release, you're getting 2 rounds. So with some time, with some training and whatnot, you'll be a little smoother on the trigger, but it is going to require some level of training. Nonetheless, you can build these a bit cheaper. Now, be aware that your barrel and your gas system might not stand up to the higher rate and volume of fire that something like this might. And even these have their limitations. Like I said before, these aren't machine guns, but you should look to conventional doctrine to develop the skills around the LSW gunner or the automatic rifleman. You may need to adjust what is considered your rapid, sustained, and cyclic rate of fire. For us, we kind of think of lowering that 2 to 4 rounds, depending on the rate of fire, just because these barrels aren't going to be able to maintain that as long. But even throwing 4 to 6 rounds downrange every 4 to 5 seconds is still going to be a good rate of fire, and it's going to provide you with that effect that you're trying to accomplish. Now, something else that you should think of with your LSW is it could potentially be a DMR weapon as well. You have these nice long 16 plus inch barrels. This one's all the way up to 20 inches, and you can really reach out and touch something with good marksmanship and 5.56, depending on your optic setup. If you're running something like the 3.5, even the 4, you start getting to the 500 mark. Yeah, all my Marines in the comments will be like, oh, we do it in boot camp all the time. But, you put an LPVO or something like that on here, now you're really talking. But you're probably going to be running something standard like this with a piggyback, or maybe an EOTech with a magnifier. So have the ability to implement those marksmanship skills where you can, because you don't know when it will be needed. Now, there are those that say you should just focus on your rifle marksmanship and that will be effective enough. And while that may be true, if you are some sort of civilian group or volunteer force that's starting to get a little bigger and are looking to expand your capabilities, this is a good place to go, since we unfortunately live in a day and age where unconstitutional gun laws prevent us from owning belt feds. So this is the next civilian-friendly option as far as developing the skills for when you one day may acquire those spicy platforms, but also to just develop the skills. So you should definitely look to add this into your organization or group. If you're sitting at 4 or 5 guys, probably not a concern right now. But if we're talking, maybe we're getting into the 2 small squads, platoon size level, we've got a lot of moving elements. We're really trying to look at how to increase our capabilities outside of comms and medical and whatnot, drones. This is another good direction to go to increase the fighting capabilities of that small organization. And it does not require much logistics. Like I said, the key and the special part about the LSW build is it does not require the amount of logistics that you may see with a traditional belt fed. Boom, anybody can give me a magazine and we're ready to rock. You may only have 30 rounds in that mag once we run out of D60s, but we have the ability to implement this weapon nonetheless. Guys, look to increase your capabilities even as civilians, because no matter what people will tell you on the internet, you never know when one day it's actually going to matter. And that is what you need to remember. And before anybody asks in the comment section where I got these pants, these are Helcon pants. Shout out to them. I really like these things. Guys, that's all I've got for part 6 of the Modern Minuteman series. As always, train hard, train often.